Okay. But let's just start. And let me start by welcoming you all to the first inspirational talk that we are organizing in the Drive training. And I'm happy to share with you that we are doing that on incubation, which is one of the cornerstones of a regional innovation in ecosystem, which is the topic of our Drive training. So in the Drive training, we are, for the people who don't know it, we are learning together with 14 regional innovation scheme regions from Central and Southern Europe, upcoming innovation regions from these areas. We are learning on how to improve the regional innovation ecosystems. So this means that we try to work together and get more international competitive products and services from our regions, making use of knowledge that's being generated in these regions, ideas that we get from needs assessments with our partners, the talent that is present in the regions, and the entrepreneurial attitude. So we are looking into how can we improve this. And for this, we started a year program, a training this year. There are 14 regions with all representatives in this training program. We do analysis and we do a number of strategic sessions, but we also do joint learning. We do that via literature, but we have some master classes. We did one on market assessment last week or 2 weeks ago, market validation. And we have some inspirational talks, as we call them. So these are people that have done regional innovation systems building personally themselves. And we invite them to share their experience. And we want to learn from their mistakes and the successes. I'm having a number of practical topics before we really begin. And I will introduce the speakers of today. So first of all, please switch on your cameras as much as possible, because we also want to make this interactive. And it's better to see each other, to see what everybody's thinking, how they're feeling, if they're bored or if they're engaged. So it's good to have these cameras on. And the second fun one is that we would like to see your full names. This is also convenient for the interaction, but we have to, this is European project, so we have to register everything that we're doing. So we will also register the participants in the meeting. And good to mention that we are recording this. So think about what you're saying. And also, as members of the training, you can look the recordings back in our joint learning platform. Then when you're not in interaction, please mute your microphone. Just an introduction, I, together with Nora, will host the session. So Nora is from EIT Health, and she will be our technical support, and she will also monitor all the chats. So if you have any questions or remarks, please put them also in the chat. And we will monitor these closely. There will be, after the talk from YES, there will be a Q&A session where everybody can chip in with questions and remarks. We already got some questions on beforehand during registration, but if you, during the talk of YOP, come up with any questions, please put them in the chat and we will address them in the Q&A session. Then also we have a number of polls to get a better understanding of how all you are looking at incubation, that's a very important remark as well. We will use the phrase incubation today, or incubator, and we sort of assume this is the same as an accelerator. So sometimes it's a bit confusing, but we will use incubation and incubator for today. We will also have 2 stories coming from via Meta and from George, who hopefully fixed his sound, to share their experience from their own region on how to support startups, because this has been their focus area for this year. They focus on startup acceleration, so they will some of their experience. And then at the second half of our 2-hour session, we will also have a breakout session where we will discuss in smaller groups, what did we all hear and what does this mean for my own region? So we will come back with that to define some concrete actions, some insights and actions, next step to take. And then maybe just before we start with the session, we would like to have a brief poll to start off so that we can all test also whether it works. And we would like to learn about your opinion, your vision right now on incubation before we really dive into it and come back with the results in the Q&A session. So Nora, perhaps could you start the poll? And we have 2 minutes for this. So just be brief, quick, and there's 4 questions. So we'd be happy to see what your answers would be.
Can you see the poll?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So just to be clear, YESDelft is the incubator that Job will share his experience with, as you know from the introduction.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. This is Thomas calling from Booking Clinic in Greece.
Welcome. We just started with the first poll.
Sorry for my delay.
Welcome. So let's take another 20 seconds to wrap up.
Okay, I will share the results now. Then.
Yep. So just to see the right answers. So what does the orange color mean? Nora, do you know?
It's just a more number of votes, I guess.
Okay. So just for question 1, it's sort of 250. And the second question, public investments. So this is the first 400 million euros. but as Job will explain later in his talk, this is the publicly known amount of private funding invested in these companies. And many of them will by now be trade secrets. So we don't know what the true number is. Then the third one, how many students? It's sort of 400 to 500 students that started in YESDelft in the past years, past 15 years. And who paid for incubation support? That's mostly TU Delft and the City of Delft, just the two of them. So the others chipped in as well, but the basic funding came from the first two. So this is just to warm up for the topic. And I would like to introduce now Job Nijs as our main speaker, and he knows all of the details about what we're gonna, about incubation. So to do a formal introduction, Job Nijs studied in Rotterdam at the Erasmus University. That's a school of economics. And after that, he set up his own company. And after that, he became first director of the YESDelft incubator in Delft. And that this out to turn successfully, he will share that in his presentation. And after that, he became part of the Dutch national startup support program called TechLeap nowadays. And this is coordinated together with our Prince of Orange, or actually one of the Princes of Orange. We have a bunch of them. And today he directs Braventure, which is another new startup program, but this is in Brabant. And in the Netherlands, this is the region where Eindhoven is, with Philips and ASML, TU of Eindhoven, but also some other cities with other universities as well. So this is really a regional incubation program. So he knows all about incubation, having been worked on it for 20 years now or so. I'm also happy to say that Job is a personal friend, and we share a strange hobby. So we both walk long distances throughout Europe. So I walked from the Netherlands to Rome, and Job is on his way to St Petersburg, actually walking through some of the countries where our regional innovation system, the RIS hubs, come from. And I think that's sufficient introduction. So please, Job, can you start with your presentation?
Thank you very much, Rolf, and I'm really honored to be able to share my story with you, all of you, and to talk about my hike to St. Petersburg. I'm now in Poland, and I still need some 700 kilometers before I can go into the Baltic states for the first time. So maybe I can drop by and have a coffee with some of you in the next years. We'll see about that. But I prepared a presentation with some of my experiences in setting up the incubator and trying to share some of our ideas, some of our mistakes, and some of our successes, hopefully to inspire you and to have a good discussion later on. So I'll start sharing my presentation. Okay, this one, share. So I hope you can all see the first slide. Yes, great. So I will talk about YESDelft. This is a picture of the incubator, the main hall. Some of you, I heard from Roel, already visited, but most of you didn't. So this is a building at the campus of Delft University with 12,000 square meters, with about 60, 70 startups in the building. And in this main hall is used for events, but on a daily basis for sharing coffees and having small meetups and stuff like that. and a really visible community in this building. With also in the back you can see the blue square, which is for our educational purposes. So we have students following entrepreneurship courses over there. So there's a lot of things happening. And in the past years, in the past 15 years, we supported over 235 startups. But it is important to know that we were and are very selective. So it's not easy to get in. So it's about 100 applications for 10 seats in the program. So if you look at the interest, then we can put an extra 0 behind the 5. So there has been a lot of interest, but one of our success factors is that we had a focus on those companies that deserved our support the most. I'll come back to that later. We had some very successful exits of the companies, and nowadays YESDelft is growing into a more regional incubator program for the region, with the cities of The Hague and Rotterdam now also having YESDelft on their campuses. And we are awarded top 5 position already for a few years in the UBI Global University Related Incubators program, which is really a fantastic reward for our efforts. And we are a national brand. So when we started in 2005, I always had to explain what YESDelft was to everybody. We are the incubator of Delft University. And nowadays, I already left for about 8 years, but I only have to say YESDelft and everybody says, oh wow, YESDelft. And that's really funny, because when we started, nobody knew us, and it's really cool to see how things grow in 10 years. So this is the successful bragging slide, like, wow, we are doing really good. But then what my main focus for this story is how did we start? Because we didn't start with this building and with all these people and all this media attention. We started, like most of you started or are starting, just at the beginning with 0. And that was in 2005. So my company, my startup went bankrupt. I needed a job, and I got into contact with the university, and they asked me to set this up. And I thought, this is an excellent way to get some money. I do it for a year, and then I can start up again. And that year, that evolved into almost 10 years of a fantastic ecosystem building. After that, I started up again, but I missed the ecosystem role. So now I'm back, and this is where I belong, I think. So let's go to 2000 and something about YESDelft. So there is an ecosystem full of startups, corporates. There's a lot of involvement of government and research, and we have many mentors and experts. And on the visual you see is a visual that YESDelft currently is using to show what you get when you are part of the YESDelft incubator. But this is the slide we used in 2005 when we started. I used the old slides, so I had a lot of fun going back on my Google Drive to the old slides, shares and presentations. So I use many slides from 2005 and other years. So maybe it's a little bit, how you say that, yeah, well, all different kind of slide designs, but I did that on purpose to show you the development of YESDelft through our slide decks. So this is the slides I used in 2005. So it was still a collaboration between the city and TU Delft, and this was the first presentation I gave to the board of the university in September. We started in July, August, so this was only 2 months, and we were really proud at that time that we had an extra, we already had some first results, an extra course on the university, writing a business plan. We were working together already with Rotterdam on awareness, which is all about putting entrepreneurship on the map for students and scientists. We were really proud that we had 2 people working for YESDelft at that time, the business manager, which was me, and the formula manager, awful names, which was my colleague Leslie. And we had a business club with 100 members, and we already had 14 startups in our incubator program, which were the startups. This is the first slide we used. This was our ecosystem in 2005. So we had 14 startups, and we had 100 people in our business club. And we were so proud. And of course, that's because we started. And these were startups that were already located on the campus of the university, somewhere in the cellar, in the basement of a faculty building. And we just walked around and we asked everybody, do you know any startups? And then this was it. And we put them all together and we put them in one building, and then we had a start. And in hindsight, you know, some of these companies became really successful. So that's part of the luck that you need, is that our first batch of startups, who were actually hardly get any support from us, except from putting them together in one building, a few of them became very successful. Especially Sense Umbrellas, which was a storm-proof umbrella with a few students from the design faculty. And that was a consumer product which was really looked innovative. Everybody understood the innovation, and we could use them as a role model for both our target group, the wannabe startups, and also for our shareholders, our stakeholders, to show them from this is what we're doing. So that was really lucky. And to go back in the slide, so the business club, we ended that already 3 months later, because the business club was filled with people we could not use. So there were all people who were interested but had no added value to our ecosystem. So one of the first things that we learned is that we have to build the ecosystem step by step, person by person, and inviting them by our startups or through our startups, but not just calling out saying who's interested, please join, because then we didn't have the right quality and kind of people that we needed. So that was the start with 2-3 people. A building, it was a building of the university, we could use it, and we started just doing stuff and learning on the job. And now I take a quick step to 2009, just to show you what we actually did. So this is 4 years after we started, and you can see that we had 4 centers. Still, we were at that time with about 5 or 6 people in the team, so relatively small, but we organized a lot of many things. And that's a key, one of the key tips I have for you, is that you don't need a building, you need things to happen in the building. So what we did was a lot of promotion for entrepreneurship education. We had inspirational lectures. We invited people from all over the world. We flew them in and gave them the opportunity to give lectures for our students and our startups. We organized Delft Entrepreneurial Scientist Award to involve our scientists in the startup ecosystem. And we did many, many things. Some of them were not a success, a few of them were. And so by doing many things, you learn very fast, just like a startup. And what works, you improve and you structure, and what doesn't work, you stop. And that's one of the main things, I think, that helped us becoming successful. Now, yeah, then we had the education center with a lot of education things, and the incubation center with facilities, coaching, network, education, and a pre-seed loan for our startups. And the growth center, which was more kind of a marketing thing, because we really didn't do anything in the beginning with that, because we were mainly focused on the first 3 steps. But if you look at these slides, you can see that the main the visibility was in the Inspiration Center. So half of our budget in the beginning went to this center, which is all focused about filling the pipeline. So getting entrepreneurship on the map. At that time, for us, it was still necessary. So about 1 or 2% of the students were interested in entrepreneurship. Nowadays in Delft, it's over 50%. So that changed a lot in the years. I think that is something which is universal. It's not thanks to YESDelft, but you know, in the beginning we still had to shout a lot to make ourselves visible, but also to help people to making the steps to start up a company. It's not like you go to one event and then you think, oh, I'm going to do it, and the next day you start. So you need to build easy steps for interested people to go from interest to activation. And that is a lot of the effort that we did was on that part. So this was 2009. This is our ecosystem in 2009. So that's 4 or 5 years after startup. And that's already a lot more than in the beginning, but let's say it's about double the amount. So that's really something that it is like going exponential. If you look at the money that was raised by our startups, I remember the first year it was 200,000 euros, and we were already happy with that. The second year it was 400,000 euros, and at the end, now it's hundreds of millions. So it doubles, almost doubles every year. So you know, it is taking small steps in the beginning. But if you really build an ecosystem and build something that lasts, it will grow from itself after a few years. So the first 5 years we had to do a lot ourselves and put a lot of energy in. And after that it went working from itself. And then everything is successful. And it feels like you don't have to do anything. But there is a long track of many years that you have to pull it yourself before it starts working on its own. So what made it work? I share a few of slides with my main lessons. Already said it before, create energy. It's not about the building, it's about what happens in the building. So if you visit incubator centers all over Europe, when you get into the building, I immediately feel if it's going to be a success or not. And it's all to do about the vibe. Too often it's an empty building with closed doors, with one manager being very proud that they got funding from the EU to set up a building, but nothing happens. And in other buildings, you get in and there's a student coming to you. How can I help you? Oh, I'm sorry, it's now really busy, but please have a seat. And there are things happening. And the doors are open and you can see what is happening. And this is all about energy. This is the main tip I have for everybody. You know, get things happen. Well, get sure that things happening in the building, because that will attract the right people and it will make things visible. And that is feeling like success. And you need to have that image of success from the beginning. So how did we do this with not too much money? We involved students. So we got a student board and we gave them about 50,000 euros, which is a lot of money for students. And they organized about 800 events per year, ranging from very small lunch lectures for 10 people to study trips to the US and China and everything in between. But they had about 5 people in the board and about 40 people in commissions, and that gave us a huge advantage over other incubators, because we just had a lot of things happening. The second thing, which probably is familiar to you, is create role models. So when we started with our first 14 startups, Sunshower was one of them. So the guy you see on the left, Marijn Wegdam, he was one of our role models. He was just an old student and he started his own company. This was a solar UV machine combined with the shower, so you could get a tent while taking the shower, which is not healthy at all. But at that time it was all about innovation and not about sustainability or health. But this was a role model. He was a nice guy, and he was really good. So we used him. We helped him a lot, but we also used him as a role model. So giving guest lectures at the university, we had all kind of awareness campaigns, and we gave him the floor on television programs and stuff like that. So that worked really, really well. And another really important thing is that we got a deal with Ken Morse, which you can see on the right, who was at that time the managing director of MIT Entrepreneurship Center. So my boss, who was the dean of the university, he went to the US, to Boston, to visit, to get inspired. And he was so inspired, and he asked them if he wanted to set up a guest lecture program at Delft, and he said yes. And we didn't have to pay except for the trip cost and the hotel cost. And he visited about twice a year, and he gave guest lectures for students. He helped us in the lobby for our stakeholders. So we invited the minister to have a lunch with Ken Morse. And Ken Morse would tell them how important it is to improve the entrepreneurship skills of the Dutch students. So this was one of our reasons for success, is that we got our own role model in ecosystem building involved in our own program. And that showed our own ambition, like we want to become the MIT of Europe, which is really high ambition. And we got them involved, and he was involved because he loved our ambition. And that was really successful. But that could be a good tip for you. It doesn't have to be MIT, but you can just look for who is inspiring for you. Can we get this person or this institute involved in our own ecosystem to get inspired, to help them, to share their experiences and stuff like that, which can be very helpful. Another really pragmatic lesson, which I don't see that many around, but that is really something that you don't have to be aware of, that you don't get into the sick dog syndrome. So if you have an asylum, I believe it's called in English, and you have all those dogs, some dogs die because they're really sick, and some dogs get chosen because they're happy and they look good. And then if you don't manage well, you get a bunch of dogs which are not that nice and bark too much. And then it's really difficult to get any dog to a new family. And the same accounts for startups. So if you have an incubator building and you have about 20 rooms for startups, probably it will be filled really easily, because there is always people who want cheap or free office space to start up. And the good ones, they will leave because they grow, they need more space, they want more independence, so they'll leave. And some of them, they stop and go bankrupt, and some of them just don't really get on that fast, and they feel comfortably in the cheap office space, and they stay. So if you don't manage this, within 2 years, you will have a building full of not really sexy, not really role model startups. And then it will be really difficult to attract the right people, to mentor, attract the right people, the investors, because the investors, they will visit and they'll see just not really cool startups. So this is why it's so important in the beginning not to fill it up too fast, but fill it up with the right people and get them out of the building as soon as possible, in the sense that within a few years. So what we did was raising the rent every year. So the first year it was kind of subsidized cheap. The second year it was normal price. And the third year it was expensive. So, and then they start complaining, well, I pay more than I go in a normal building. And then I always said, yes, that's exactly what I want. So why don't you go to a normal building? Because now, after 3 years, you have to get more independent, and we don't want you to stay too long. And of course, you know, there are exceptions on the rule, and you can be very flexible. But this is really important, to have a good incubator and the right people. You have to manage what comes in, and you have to manage what goes out. And if you don't do that right, then you get into problems, and it's really difficult to get back to the good vibe again. It's not easy. So my last slide, I believe, about my lessons is building an ecosystem asks for long-term commitment. So you need some short-term successes like the first cool startups, the visibility, some media attention, a politician visiting your incubator, stuff like that is good for your stakeholders. But you have to be aware that then it's about long-term creation, value creation, and you have to build it one person by one person. No, I don't say it correctly, but it is like really personal selling. What we did is we visited every professor of the university and have a talk with him about entrepreneurship. And we didn't got all of them, but you know, just sending out an email to all professors, you don't get any reaction. Creating a kind of visibility promotion thing, okay, but nothing happens. You really have to get connected on a personal level if you're talking about professors, but also if you talk about investors, about mentors. It is one by one building it up. And all these people and institutes you see now on the screen, you know, they all had an introduction meeting with the director or with the community manager of were introduced by one of the startups. And now you see that we have VCs who are started by alumni YESDelft companies. So they know all about YESDelft vibe and they know all about how it works. We have people who went bankrupt and now work as an innovation manager at one of the corporates, and they connect with the YESDelft. So now it's growing into a kind of adult ecosystem, but that takes about 15 years. And I think nowadays it can go much faster because there's much more interest from all stakeholders, government, corporates, and students in this field. So I think you can do it in 5 to 10 years. But it is personal selling. It's not easy. It takes a lot of energy. And my last remark is consultants don't build ecosystem, they build their hours, which is a kind of offensive maybe, but you know, I see sometimes people want to outsource building ecosystems. You can't outsource that because it's about those personal connections and you need to do it yourself. And it takes time. You need support from the board. You need the long-term view, and you need to have some luck with some first few successes, and then things start running. So I believe that was it. Stop sharing. Wow,
Okay.
1 minute.
Thank you very much, Job, for this introduction, and you're even within time, so that's great.
Yeah.
As you mentioned on beforehand, we have been talking for hours about these things, so it's quite neat to have it within the scope of time. Thank you. So now we open up the floor for some questions. So please put them in the chat, and Nora will give you the turn if you have the question. But I would like to start with some of the questions that came in already. So maybe the first one, it's on the business model for incubation. So if you want to set up an incubator in your region, who should pay for, you talked about a team that's running stuff, you had a building, who should pay for what, and what's in it for them? What's the return on investment for the ones that pay for it? Or should the companies just pay it themselves?
Yes, I'll go into that. So I believe that incubation is not a money-making program. So you have a lot of private accelerator programs, and they get some shares from the startups, but that doesn't work. You know, that you don't get the right people. It is blowing up stuff to get some early returns, but you know, hardly any of those private accelerator programs are able to get a sustainable revenue stream from this program. So now they get their attention to corporates and start corporate acceleration programs, but that doesn't work either. So now they start educating corporates, but that's, you know, it doesn't work. So this, I think this is also a public role, because this is something that is really important as an important step between the knowledge of the universities and the societal impact. And startups are really important to get this knowledge from the universities to society, because large corporates tend to see this as too risky, too long to get to market, to go to market. So startups are really important as a mean to get this knowledge to the market. And if we invest publicly into these programs, then in the end, society will get the rewards with solutions on health issues, but also with new jobs created, with new taxes flowing in, and also with new collaborations from these startup companies with the universities. So there are many people who get the revenues from all these programs, but it won't go back to the incubator directly. That doesn't mean that you have to be careful. So if you look at YESDelft nowadays, about 80% of the budget is from corporates. So they pay a lot of money to get involved in the startup community. They pay for access to all the startups and to learn from the way startups work and stuff like that. So now for YESDelft, you don't need almost no public funding. But in the first 15 years, we were really dependent on public funding, and we had some money from the banks and the accountants. And it was more kind of sponsoring, more kind of society responsible companies who pay us some money, but it was only a small part of our budget. Most came from university, local government, and national government, and some EU projects like the new building we got funded by EU money. So we need some public funding, and we need the startups to pay also a little bit. So they had to pay for the rent. So we gave them a personal loan of 15,000 euros, each founder, and they could use that to pay the rent. But the issue is that if you give everything for free, you spoil them. And that's especially if US people visit Europe, they see all those incubator programs, they also think they are only spoiling these people. You know, you need to have a sense of urgency to go to market. And if it's all too easy and you're staying on your university campus and everything is for free and everybody likes you, but you don't pay attention to the market and to your new customers because you don't need to.
So to summarize, the city of Delft, they contributed with some budget so that local jobs were created.
Yeah.
The university board wanted to have innovative new industrial partners close by for future collaboration. And they wanted to use it as a vehicle to get their knowledge into society. And companies need to pay for their own rent. So for maintenance of the building and things like that. Also because they need an incentive to pay for something.
Yeah.
Okay, then I see a lot of questions coming in. So Nora, perhaps you have some questions already for Job?
Exactly. First, a quick one from Lorna Staka from Czech Republic. She just wants to confirm whether it's true that it was just 50K located to this students to organize the 800 events, because that seems like a really low budget.
That's a good point. We started with 50, and when we were at 800 events, it was 150, but not only from YESDelft, but also from other sponsors. So that's a good point. That's not realistic.
Thank you.
But still, you can do a lot with 50K and a bunch of students.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, students, they have a lot of energy. They're really smart, and so it's just giving them the platform, and they go. Yeah.
Okay, then we have a really good question from Jan. What are the mistakes you did, and what are mistakes you could avoid?
Yes. So the first one, I think the main mistake in the beginning was that we that we set this business club. So when you say you invite people who wants to start up, you get a lot of elderly people who just retired and they want to do good. So this really, you know, it's really nice. It's really good. They have the really good intentions, but sometimes, yeah, they're kind of already detached from current business rules and stuff. So those are just not the right people to coach. And that is really difficult to know, because those are really nice people with a lot of experience, but they are already 75 and then it's too late. So that kind of mistakes, and we got a lot of consultants. So IP consultants, innovation consultants, and they all became business, but they only there to get some money. So that is one of the mistakes in who are we getting helping us out. Other mistakes that we made, well, it's about getting in and getting the right startups in. That was okay, but getting them out, that was difficult, because you get connected to the people and they are nice. And when is it time to leave? You know, if you just failed the first time, but you make a pivot, you try again, you just hope that they will succeed, and then you have the tendency to say, you know, oh, you can stay another year. But you have to be really strict, and that's difficult. And then the third one, maybe that's an important one too, is that first you have to split the roles of supporting and selecting. So if you are there to help a startup, you are helping them, and they have to be 100% sure that they can share everything. So if they share that they don't believe in their own team, because, you know, there's one of the founders that is not working well, they must be able to share with you. And if they don't get a loan because because we don't believe in the team, then you know, they don't want to share this kind of stuff anymore with you.
Maybe Job, I don't think you dove into that too much. So how does the selection mechanism work when you want to enter YESDelft?
So we have an independent selection committee, and we did that after 1.5 years. So first I did it myself, but now we have an independent selection commission with entrepreneurs, an investor, somebody from the university, and they decide who's in or out. And also the review, which we started after 4 or 5 years doing reviews, yearly reviews. You know, before that you were in and you were in, and there was no review at all. So that's something that probably we should have done earlier, because that works really well if you can split that up. And if you have a trust relation with somebody, you can't be the one who is also doing the review.
Okay, so the teams can come to the YESDelft team for support, and then you will help them as much as you can to prepare them for the committee as well, for the review committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one.
Yeah. George was asking what were the best events and programs or workshops that brought the most value to the YESDelft Incubation. So probably also gathered some feedback from them. What was that about?
Well, I think that the best thing that the best strategy that we had was that we had a call to action after every event. So we started with inspiration, and we had, for instance, an inspirational lecture of a famous entrepreneur in the Netherlands. And then at the end, we said, if you are interested to learn more, you can apply for the course, Start Your Own Company. And then we had 300 people in the room, and then we had 25 applying for this course. And it is just making that chain from interest to action, which worked really well. So for inspirational lectures, it worked really well to have some famous entrepreneurs. So we got a lot of attention, but the most value had the smaller events, that for those people who are really interested, they got really intense support to really get kickstarted. And that worked the best. So those kind of, you have to apply for this program, and we only have 10 seats. And then we had 50 applications. Those programs are really effective. Of those 10 people, you still, you know, at least half of them are still in the ecosystem as an entrepreneur or investor or working at YESDelft.
Yeah, so always these quality thresholds, right? For almost all of the programs, you have to apply. You don't get in for free. You have to do something so that will becomes also more worthwhile for the participants.
It's also a thing that is really important to understand, is you have to be humble. The most value of what you do is in the peer-to-peer network that you build. So they learn most from each other. And all the things that we do is useful and we have to do it. But you know, in the end, it's about what they learn from each other. Like kids at school, it's the same. We need all those teachers, but in the end, they learn most from each other. And that's the same in incubation. So you have to provide that. And that's why you need to be selective, because you need the right people who want to learn from each other. And if you have somebody with other reasons or who is less ambitious or less motivated or hasn't got the full commitment, then they have a really negative impact on the network, the community. And that's the only reason that you need to be really selective. It doesn't really matter how you select as long as you select, is my one-liner all the time.
Okay, thank you. Then we have another question about how you secured the support from the board in the beginning. This was asked by Vlatka from Croatia.
Yeah. Well, that's also part of the luck that we had a very committed board. So they visited our incubator at least once a month. So we got to know all the board members of the university on a personal level very fast. So we had the, you know, how you say that, you know, we have the rule, help me out, the Raad van Toezicht. How is that in English?
The board of advisory board.
Well, kind of, yeah, advisory board for who will control the board of the university. And our university already invited that board to YESDelft after 2 months. So that gave a lot of trust to us. And we get them informed all the time and invited them also for informal drinks with the startups. So sometimes at Friday we had to just weekend, you know, start the weekend drinks with startups. And then, well, once in a while, one of the board members just popped in and had a beer and had a talk. And that really worked well. So invest a lot in the relation. And I know this is also a cultural thing. You know, the Netherlands is really, it's maybe more open-minded than some other countries.
Yeah, we don't have hierarchy.
Less, yeah. So we get them involved, and most people like this because it's a lot of positive energy. Those are the students who really want something. You know, we had a lot of positive energy, and all those people visiting. So I remember the bank, one of the board members of a Dutch bank, Rabobank. He came to visit and he started dancing. And he said, this is why I want to work at a bank. I want to help these young people. And that positive energy, that helps a lot. So that's again why you need to have a good vibe in the building, because that makes it a lot easier.
And it's good to mention here also that, so next week we'll have Karel Luybe. So he's one of the university leaders from past 15 years. And he can say more about it. Yeah. But also one of the incentives for the board members of why they wanted to have this was also some sort of jealousy compared to MIT or Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So plenty of other places had good incubators or a lot of companies at their campuses and were famous for that. And our university wanted to have that as well. So they also saw something that was reflecting to that ambition. That they could be proud of.
Okay, thank you. The more questions are coming in. So Maria from Portugal asked whether you could promote an incubation program that is full of activities if you are located outside of the city. So how do you connect the ecosystem in that case?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's really difficult. One of the things that we were lucky with, because we were not aware of it when we started, is that we were on the middle of the campus, and that makes it a lot easier. So proximity is really, really important. Also in this digital age, you want to have people just accidentally meet each other at the coffee machine. And so it is possible. We tried to set up a kind of YESDelft affiliate in the Rotterdam harbor, which took about an hour to reach. You need to take a boat to be there, to come there if you don't have your own car. And it was a really cool place, but we failed because it was just too far away from everything. So if you need to get the vibe. And nowadays, it is a huge success. It is one of the coolest campuses in the Netherlands, and there's a lot of attraction, but it took them a long time. So if you are not on the campus yourself, outside the city, you know, you have to invest more to get the energy in. So maybe get a nice coffee, kind of Starbucks thing in, and attract others to do events and stuff like that. So to get the vibe.
Okay. And then there are two things participants asked you to elaborate a bit on. One is the shift from innovation to sustainability. And the other one is lobbying, how you do that and how you turn people around.
Okay, well, so first about innovation to sustainability, I think that in the Netherlands you also see that there is now a current move to building ecosystems. So in the past it was all about triple helix, so government, corporates, and universities. But nowadays it's more about ecosystems. So there's a lot of more attention for startups. That's really good. And the other thing is, what was I talking about?
The general trend of sustainability, social entrepreneurship.
So this is, we call it in the Netherlands mission-driven policy. So what we do now is select more, and you have to add value to one of our core missions, and it can be sustainability or health or digitalization. So if you don't fit into this in these windows, then you don't get into the programs. So I don't know if that is the question, but you know, you can get more selective and get the right people. And what you see now at YESDelft is you have the scale right now. So now you have verticals. So you have AI verticals and health verticals, really connected very well to EIT health. So, but that's the second part. You know, first you just help everybody because you can't have 8 verticals when you start. And the second part is the lobbying. So we were kind of lucky that we had all this attention from the beginning. There was a kind of timing issue that everybody was waiting for this, and because of all those positive energy, everybody visited, and all those politicians, they visit and they ask you, what do we need to do? So we were kind of passively lobbying, and also I was not aware at all of the influence we had, because I was just a young guy at that time. I was 30, and I just said what I believed in, and then after a few times you see a letter of the minister to the parliament saying what you said, and they said, oh wow, this is cool. So we were completely unaware of what we were doing, but it worked. So nowadays I'm a little bit more aware and of the importance of this part, and that is also a thing from now, is there's a lot of more data available. So data-driven policy making is really working well. So show them the figures. If you start with 0, that's okay, because you can grow easily. So about how much money gets into our startups. If it's 200,000, show them. And next year it's 300,000, then it's okay, it's growing. So use the data much better than we did in the 15 years ago. Helps a lot for the lobbying. For instance, the Netherlands now, we have Tech Leap, the national thing, and they just add the figures of all the local incubators, and then you see, oh, it's impressive. We create 4 times as much jobs than normal companies do. And if you add the numbers on national, even EU level, then this is getting really impressive. And if you don't have the figures yourself, you can use the figures of the Netherlands, like, okay, they started maybe 5 or 10 years earlier, and look what they achieved in 10 years. We can do the same. So use the numbers for the lobbying. That works really well, I think.
Yeah, Nora, I think we're about to have to wrap up.
Yes.
Maybe you do one last question.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the last one, so that's great. And it is from Darius, and he's asking how you evaluate which startup is going into the right direction before they get any earnings.
Yeah, oh, that's a good question too. Well, if you have those lean startup methodology, I presume that all of you are more or less aware, know this thing. Is you have all those experiments that you do. So you have an hypothesis, you make an experiment, and you learn, and you evaluate, and then you make a new experiment, and in this way you go to a product that works, product market fit, and then you go to market. So what we do nowadays is ask them, what is your plan? What are you going to do? What do you want to learn? And then they have to evaluate themselves. So what did we actually do? What did we actually learn? And if they didn't do anything, then it's a negative one. And if they did the right thing and they learned, and they show that they use the learnings into their company, then it's okay. They can continue. And if they don't, then you get a warning, and the next time they're out.
Okay. Thank you. I learned a lot again, Job, from you on this topic. Thank you. We will now move to some of the examples from the RIS hubs, or the EIT Health hubs, I must say. But not before I want to share one last thing that I learned from marketing from YESDelft. So at the beginning, nobody knew YESDelft, but all these startups, they were really cool. So they were in the newspapers and on television. So they awarded a bottle of champagne if you were able, as a startup, to also get the name of YESDelft mentioned into the article or at television. So this was some sort of a bootstrap, guerrilla marketing type of way. So a lot of bottles of champagne were shed, but also this really built their brand. So I like that approach. Just didn't want to leave that out today. So maybe now we go to some of the examples that we want to share. So I think we start with George, right? Yeah. And George, did you fix your audio?
Yeah, I think I did.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, just gonna share my screen.
So George is coming from the National Documentation Center in Greece, and he is one of the participants in the DRIVE training. So George, please share in the coming 10 minutes the experience that you have with support of the startups in your region.
Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have to introduce myself since some of you may not know me. I'm George Megas from the National Documentation Center in Athens, Greece, and we're the EIT Health Hub here. We're also national contact points for Horizon 2020 and members of the Enterprise Europe Network and some other things. And now we are actually under the Ministry of Digital Transformation here in Greece. So our motto is knowledge in the digital era. Here you can see some of our events. And I will start directly by our acceleration support all these years since 2017 when we joined EIT Health. We have supported more than 60 startups, of course, with the support of EIT Health. Since before that, we were mainly focused on researchers or innovation-driven enterprises. And I guess I would say more than 12 startups have been funded or accepted to EIT Health acceleration programs. And of course, in other European programs and national as well. Here you can see the big success of Synois Therapeutics that won the European Health Catapult Awards in 2018, a company fighting Parkinson's disease. And directly I'm going to the, excuse the Greek, you can see here some of our portfolio companies, the ones that the startups that we supported all these years to participate in programs of EIT Health, like InnoStars Awards, Head Start, Catapult, or the RIS projects. Of course, you can see also Booking Clinic, who won the Head Start program this year, and you saw Mr. Hadjistergiou that joined us earlier. And I think it's not as many as the YESDelft portfolio, but it's a start. Continuing, we'll have to say that we are still on the triple helix phase and not on the sustainability phase. So on this matter, I have to just, the first time now, to present to you that this year we made a publication on the Triple Helix magazine, peer-reviewed publication, led by Dr. Karapekis and the rest of our innovation team co-authored it. And it positions our organization in the innovation ecosystem here in Greece. Of course, half of the paper is about, or like 30% is about EIT Health and how we supported the SMEs and startups, especially during this time, this period of COVID-19 pandemic. And it will be available for you to read, and we will promote it further. So our focus at this point is the knowledge triangle integration. So I will start with, again, with some former collaborations in the innovation ecosystem and some new collaborations that happened this year because we chose the focus area of startup acceleration. We have started working with some accelerators and incubators since 2017 and 18, like the National Bank of Greece Business Seeds Accelerator, which supports with major events and workshops more than 30 or 40 startups every year, and gives from 20,000 to 5,000 euros to 4 of their annual winners. Most of the startups that are going to the NBG Business Seeds are coming also to the health-related ones, are coming to the EIT Health competitions and vice versa. We do several workshops every year, and I think whenever we do an EIT Health workshop, Dr. Arsenis, the manager, is here and also brings together a lot of other players. He's, as our Delft mentors say, he's a networker, and we try to use networkers as much as we can. And at this point, as I will show you in a bit, we have connected with almost all the 80% of the startups in the health sector in Greece or Athens, mostly this year. We have worked with the Mindspace and an incubator coming from the United States and also having a branch here. And of course, we are members of the Enterprise Europe Network. This is managed by ASME and is the biggest network for supporting SMEs, not startups though only, but SMEs, the Commission. And of course, we are, if we want to move a step further and try to reach, to support a startup or an SME to get more than 500K, we have also access to the EIC accelerators since we are national contact points for these programs as well. And since last year, we became members of the Startup Europe for Growth and Innovation Radar Initiative under the Startup 3 project. And we're supporting more than 25 startups globally. And 3 are health startups from Greece that are also participating in EIT Health programs. But we're not giving funding, we're providing some other kind of support. This year, we expanded to the other, to the second biggest, or it doesn't matter, I don't compare the size, but to the other big accelerator in Greece, the Eurobank Accelerator and their Growth Go, where we're drafting an MOU with them. But the MOU is not the important thing. The important thing is that we're already co-organizing their 8th, competition for startups, the cohort for COVID-19 startups specifically. And they participated, all of these players are participating in our ecosystem development workshops. And soon after they decide, because they will do the selection, which startups are moving forward, they will come to us, provide them with mentoring, access to funding and other services. And as we found last year with our survey that we did through EIT Health, Greece had only 1 or 2 technology transfer offices in their university, in our universities, but we have 2 new technology transfer offices. And Archimedes Technology Transfer Office is the National University of Athens TTO, where we organized together the Info Day for EIT Health this year and other events last year. So we have now access to the research, the scientific pool of the University of Athens, the biggest university in Greece. And we are also collaborating with Bayer Hellas, pharmaceutical and their corporate responsibility programs, again, providing extra support to our health-related idea teams or startups. And the accelerator of the Athens University of Economics and Business, we are again participating with them, and we have been presenting in their events, and they have been presenting in ours, trying to connect the whole system in a way. Something I will show you in the end of this presentation, we are working with some of the venture capitals that have been established here in Greece with the support of EIF, 3 years now. This whole cohort of VCs that has received funding from EIF is called Equifund, and they have received more than 200 million to provide to startups in various rounds.
George, you have 2 minutes left.
Yeah. Now I said everything about the partnerships. Here you can see them, the previous ones and the new ones, as I was talking about them in the events. Forgot I had this analysis later. And now something that's really interesting for me is something that happened that couldn't have happened without EIT Health. Well, last year we went to Israel. We listened to the presentation of Dr. Leon Friend from NVIDIA. And after some beers, we discussed more, and we said that we should get in contact, and we should have something of a common program or a memorandum of understanding or a support. And after, like, as you can see on the right side, after a bunch of LinkedIn bothering emails and messages, of course, Leon said that she's not bothered. We drafted a memorandum of understanding, and now our startups will have access to these things that NVIDIA is offering. Access to trainings, to learnings, to also to hardware, to GPUs with low prices. So I think this is a major win for us, and it will do a lot for our awareness raising. And finally, here are the VCs funded by EIF and the Equifund, which could actually boost the ecosystem. Thank you very much. That was it for me. I tried to be quick. I hope,
Thank you, George. Very interesting presentation. And just for me to get a clear understanding of it, what you actually describe is a set of activities and programs for that you are running, not per se connected to one specific building as an incubator, right? It's a set of activities that you work with some incubators from Greece.
Since we don't have an incubation space, although we have a big library and we have this room here for trainings, we don't have a space for incubation, but we're trying to provide tools that we have from the EIT Health and also the ecosystem that wants to work with us. Yeah.
And okay, so you work with some physical locations. You mentioned that, I think, in your presentation.
All the other incubators / accelerators have physical locations and have incubation programs, and the Go provides also low interest loans to the winners, and they also train them for 6 months with their mentors, and of course we are their mentors as well.
Yeah. So I think this is also what Job was referring to in his presentation on you have to create programming and activities and events and buzz, and whether you have the building or not, actually that comes second. That was one of the things of Job's presentation. So I'm also asking this as a bridge to the next part, which will be a poll. And this poll will revolve around what do we jointly assume to be an incubator and incubator programs, and what is it in your region? Do you have this one, or do you see improvement for yourself also for the breakout session? So let's do the poll first, and then we go to via Meta. So let's take 20 more seconds. Okay, so that's interesting to see. So sort of half of you has a building as well for young companies. Then there are not so many who have pre-programs such as a bootcamp or others. Some of you say, yes, we're quite on our way. And others say, we still have work to do. So I think these will be, this is the information that you can take into the breakout sessions. But first, I would very much like to hear from Fiammetta, what their experience is from their region. So we now move to Sicily. And like George, Fiammetta has chosen to focus on startup acceleration this year in our DRIVE program. And please, Fiammetta, if you can give the introduction on what's happening in your region.
I will share my screen. So please tell me if you see it.
I can see it, yep.
Okay, perfect. So it will be difficult now to match with the successful experience of YESDelft, but I'll try.
We're all learning here, and we're all at the beginning of something.
But we have the same year of beginning, so it's much more difficult because we began in the same year. ARCA is a consortium for the application of research and the creation of innovative enterprises, which was created by the University of Palermo and a private group in 2003, even if it became operative in 2005. ARCA is also part of a creative business incubator that is named Crazy. It's located in the historic city center of Palermo, and it deals mainly with creative industries, social innovation activities. Instead, ARCA deals only with technological startups. So ARCA is located within the University of Palermo campus. It covers an area of 1,500 square meters, and it's built around the system of common spaces like a co-working area, a kitchen, a lounge area, printing facilities. You'll see, you can see now our Fabrica. It's a space where companies can develop their prototypes. It's a space of 300 square meters. And it's a place where startups can work without having to pay the machinery and the facilities. We have also common spaces and equipped offices for the startups when they can share ideas and meet just for coffee. We have classrooms where we organize a lot of events, meeting with investors, training events. And we have also a co-working space where those who do not need a private office can stay and develop their ideas. We have also Solar Lab. This Solar Lab is just in front of Consortio ARCA. It covers an area of 3,000 square meters, and it is the first pilot plant in Europe developed within urban settings. It is based on concentrating mirrors technology, which are able to provide electricity, heat and cooling for multiple uses. And this field is devoted to the demonstration and testing of new solar components and technologies. And it is open to all those who want to understand more about these technologies and who want to get in touch with researchers. What we do, we promote industrial research and technological transfer programs, and we collaborate with other local actors. So we try to collaborate with the municipality, with obviously with the university, not only with the University of Palermo, but also with the University of Catania and Messina. And we want to support the process of business creation, technology transfer, and social innovation in order to develop new skilled jobs and new economic value in our region. We work mainly with students, researchers, and in general with innovators, because we are open to all those who want to set up a new startup, not only from those who came from the university. And we try to develop their entrepreneurial potential. The method that we use is the open innovation method. So we try to foster the collaboration between research and SMEs, local SMEs, because we deeply think that the technology transfer process is the only solution to make a shorter link between research lab and the market. We are part of a lot of international network. We are a certified EBN incubator. We are not a certified incubator in Italy because of some juridical problems, but we are part of the EBN community. We are part of the Enterprise Europe network, as George said before, and obviously we are part of the EIT network. Within our Enterprise Europe network activity, we also offer help on IP issues, because a colleague of mine, she's also connected here today. She's our EU IP helpdesk ambassador, so she can give a complete first level support on intellectual property. We organize each year a business plan competition. This year is the 16th edition. Its name is Start Cup Palermo. And this competition aims to support research and technological innovation. And the aim of this competition is to try to scout researchers and students that want to try to become entrepreneurs, giving them support in developing their business plan. The final aim of this competition is the National Prize of Innovation, because the winners of the Start Cup Sicily, so the regional competition, will take part in the National Prize of Innovation. This competition wants to support the creation of highly innovative companies, and it involves all the Italian universities, so all the technological startups divided into 4 main sectors: ICT, industrial, clean tech and energy, and health. And the aim of this competition is to spread business culture in the academic sphere and to foster the relationship between researchers, business world, and finance. Our main thing that we are not able to do, we have not our private investment fund, so we are not able to directly invest in our startups. We only can give them support in the mentoring phase and with our facilities, but we know that the main problem in Sicily is financing. So how we try to solve this problem? We host in many events a lot of accelerators, venture capitalists, business angels, and all those who can invest in our companies. Because in Sicily there are no venture capitalists, so we try to attract them from the north of Italy. The access to our incubation services is reserved mainly for ideas with a high technological content, and we give a great importance in the selection process, because we want team, open-minded team, goal-oriented, and we try to select teams that can show different skills. So not only engineers, not only doctors, not only people from the economic sector. Since 2005, we have selected more than 500 ideas, and we have helped about 60 startups to be to be funded. Many of those are spin-offs of the university. We try to act locally, but to think globally. So we try to make connections for our startups with other networks, like we are doing with EIT, and we try to help them in this startup phase. So in general, in the first 3 years of the startups, then we try to tell them to go away, as it was said before, on their own legs. So thank you.
Thank you.
This was just my short presentation.
Yes, thank you. It's very interesting what you showed. So I wrote down a few topics that I would like to get into in the wrap up. So maybe for Job to reflect on it as well. But for now, I would like to move to the breakout sessions. So Nora, perhaps we can do 15 minutes. I think we discussed 20 minutes first, but let's try and wrap up at 11:45. So what I would like to ask to all of you to, in the breakout session, reflect on what you just heard, what you saw in the polls coming up. Maybe some things surprised you that others are looking into it differently than you are, or some of the examples from George or Fiametta or from Job that could be of interest to your region. Please just take 15 minutes to share what you can learn from this. And as Job was already recalling, what could be the point of action? So what could you yourself start doing after this session? Reaching out to others, doing stuff, setting up programs, finding friends to take a next step. So please focus on that as well in your talk. And then we will come back to wrap up in 15 minutes. And Nora can push the magic buttons.
Yes.
Nora, can you enforce everybody to get
Yes,
back?
yes. Now everybody is
Okay.
back. There was a time
Okay.
limit, so
Okay.
everybody came back automatically. Conversations were interrupted. Sorry for that, but we can continue, you know. Yeah,
so we are going to wrap up this session, but I think, as Job was pointing out in his talk as well, so it's we are all just kindergarten kids in here learning from each other. So let's continue that in the DRIVE program in next opportunities, as we have been doing in the past 15 minutes. But I would like to get a few reflections and hear some of Job's opinion also on this. While listening to the presentations of some of the others, this came in mind. So perhaps I can still share my slide. I want to show something. Can you see my
Yes.
Yeah. So Job, you know this image, of course. So this is when you enter the YESDelft incubator. And this is the mission of YESDelft. And you have been explaining, you yourself, but also some of the other presenters, all the bunch of activities that are there, what you do. But this is the mission of YESDelft. So how does this help you in running the incubator, or how did it help you? Can you say something about that?
Of course. Well, first, it is not the mission anymore. So
okay.
The current managing director, he skipped it. I regret that. I think that it was a really powerful mission, because this is about focus. So everything we did, also in the team, if we have opportunities to collaborate or to work with something or get money from the government to do something, we always said to each other, does it help us building tomorrow's leading firms. So everything we do has to help to achieve this mission, and it also helps in selecting the companies. Is this a company, a startup that has this ambition? If you don't have the ambition to become a leading firm, then you're not fitting in our programs. So this is a good mission, helps you a lot in choosing your own activities and choosing what companies to support.
Okay, and what I also appreciated of this mission is that so YESDelft is an independent company owned by the city and the university, sort of. And this gave YESDelft some sort of an independent position. So you as a director were able to get into a fight now and then with the TTO director of TU Delft, because sometimes the university decided on certain policies that were not to the benefit of creating these leading firms. So how did that work out for you as an independent organization, just with this mission?
Yeah, well, that's a good point, an important point. We were lucky that we had two founders. So we set up an independent foundation just because there were two founders, the university and the city. But in the end, it was a part of our, it gave us the opportunity to do it different. And we are there to support the startups. So we help them prepare for the IP negotiations with the university. So my boss was the dean. He was also the boss of the technology transfer office. And sometimes indeed we had a fight because the legal department was complaining about all these startups being so well prepared, and they were not going with the suggested contracts. And so that was more difficult for the university, but I was really convinced that this is important, because a good contract is a good contract for both parties. And if you have a good prepared party, then you have a good negotiation. And so this was not always easy, but the university was really, and Karel Luijbe can also explain that by next week, sometimes you need to have this creative friction in the university to get a good result. And that works really well. We always had respect for each other, and also respect for the role you have. And the TTO was there to well, think about the goals for the university as getting enough money and protect their knowledge. And I was there for the university to educate the startups and making them become more successful. And in the end, it is always okay, but it's not easy to on the road. You have a lot of friction.
Okay, thank you. So just want to do a minor point. I think Fiametto raised it. So the focus of the YESDelft companies has always been tech. So you had to have a product that makes noise when you drop it down the table. That was something that was focused on. Maybe now it's also e-health and AI, so it's not a consultancy company or some sort of new service. You always had some tech element in there. And maybe, Job, as a last remark, there was some question, of course, about how to attract investors to your community of startups. Because that, of course, that's not easy. Also in the Netherlands, there weren't too much VCs. Like in Israel or in San Diego, you go into a coffee bar, you'll find all these loaded people. So how can you create some critical mass there to attract investors to your community of startups?
Yeah, that's also a good question, because it's really difficult and also really context related. So I remember being in the Basque region in Spain 10 years ago, when it was still not that, the EIT was still active. So there were no informal investors in the Basque region, because if you show you have money, you get the EIT knocking on your door asking for your money. So there was no culture of being open about that you are rich. So this was really impossible. So sometimes if you have no active venture capital or angel community yet, then probably the government has to step in and help getting this risk capital available for the startups. And it takes a long time. I think for the Netherlands, it still is one of the main issues. If we really want to become a global competitive, we need much more, and especially more experienced venture capital. Because a good venture capitalist can not only give money, but also help in scaling up your company and also help for an exit. And in Europe, in general, we lack this a lot. It is really one of the big issue. So I'm afraid that my quick answer is create your own funds, try to connect, and if you have one or two good companies who get funded, then it gets started. So then you can invite more VCs, and we did it a lot in all kind of VC events, but still, I have to say this is a difficult, because quality of the VCs is just not okay.
So maybe I will write it down. We can invite the director of Innovation Quarter, which is a regional investor who was going to speak in March as well in the Delft visit, to have such a session with him as well, because he really set up a nationally and locally public funded organization to fund startups connected with private sector. So if there's an interest in that, we can invite him to talk about that as well. So maybe the last points I wanted to raise. Next week, as said, we will have Professor Karel Luyben. He started being a dean at TU Delft in 1998 of the biggest faculty. He became director after that, and he has been really instrumental in building an innovation ecosystem from Delft with the outside world, but also towards the scientific community, to get people on board with this. So, and he's a very open person. We can ask him everything. He's quite Dutch, so direct. But you can get a good perspective from a board member of a university. So we also sure to invite people from the university that are working either as a board member, if you have close connections to them, or some other people from the hierarchy that you would like to involve with this. And then we will have, just a practical note, we have some startup troubles our own with the education platform. You've been sending me some questions for that. I will respond to that tomorrow. We'll fix it, but just bear with us for a few days. And last thing, I want to invite speakers of today. So George and Fiamata to present the experience from their regions. I think it's good if we just openly share the good things and the things we want to work on in this community. And of course, Job, for your introduction in YESDelft and for sharing all the learnings and the successes of your experience. And with that, Nora, thank you for organizing everything. And I would like to see you next week again. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye to you all.
Bye.